What's up, family? It's your boy, Coach Cody. Better body, better life. Looking good, feeling good from the inside out. So I'm super excited and pumped up. How about you, Laura? You excited?
I am so excited.
Why are you so excited?
Because we got our first guest of the Sustainable Growth Podcast with us today, Mr. Joe DiRoma in the house. My house. So, Joe, based on, my experience with you, man, I know a little bit about your background. You know, you had a tough upbringing. And not just that, but, character building 20s, right?
I would definitely say he had a character building decade.
But
absolutely.
So you I know there was DUIs, drug use, and I can relate to so much of that because when I went from 18 to 23, I was heavily addicted to drugs. But my transformation has been awesome, and I see the same thing in you. Is wow, you went from this really tough character building scenario, and you blossomed into this beautiful butterfly, dude. You're a high level COO. You're an operator of anywhere from $10 million to $100 million businesses, and your emotional intelligence level has to be so high for you to be able to effectively manage teams, which is I think a key that people don't understand of going from $1 million to 10 million and 10 million to 100 million is the ability to be able to communicate with people, lead people, build a very good culture. And I'm so honored to know you, dude. I think you're fucking cool.
Yeah,
likewise. I see one thing for me is that growing up, I didn't see people that had similar struggles to me be successful. I saw people that were from the perfect family, had everything handed to them, and that's why they had success. So I just relate to you on so many levels because I didn't have it easy either. I had drug use problems, I had toxic relationship problems, and I'm focused on becoming the best version of myself to be able to lead that heavy hitter $10 million, $100 million team. So I'm just in awe of your presence, my dude.
Thanks. It's amazing. Just to tell a little bit more, he's helped me grow with emotional intelligence, with everything. He's been definitely somebody I look up to and admire. And for anybody watching out there, once you find somebody that you can relate to, it makes a huge impact in your life. And he's made such an impact in my life. And I made a declaration to him. He helped me, and the declaration was to my poison. I always talk about I turned my poison into my passion to my purpose. Was I was addicted to the game, the hustle, and women. And I was over it. I kept attracting all of these women in my life, and I'm like, what's wrong? And I had to look in the accountability mirror, and I talked to Joe, and I'm like, yo, man, I need some help, brother. Help a brother out. And he's like, you need to make a declaration, and you have to really, really focus on that and be honest with yourself. And I made that declaration, and now I'm married to Audrey, who that's my biggest achievement, and Joe DiRoma helped me achieve that. So can you help us out and dive deep into that, my brother?
Yeah, I would love for you to just let's time travel.
Yeah, for sure.
Into that 18 to early 20s Joe. What was that Joe like? What was his habits? What was his thought process? Walk me through that.
Sure. For me, it started before that, right? Before 18. I needed to change the way I felt. By the time I was 14, it was game over. I started getting into drugs right into high school, real early. And the reality is that life was just too bright. It was too much. It was too painful. My grandfather died on my first day of high school, and he was my guy. You know what I mean? He was this person for me that I held in such high regard. And at that time I was if God loves me so much, if God loves the world so much, then why would he take a man that's a spiritual giant, a great man, at 70 from pancreatic cancer, right? It was in his liver and it spread. And for me, that was a turning point, because at that point I could turn my back on God, and I could run on the next best thing, which was run on Joe. Now I'm going to take over, right? I'm going to take control. And I did a shit job.
Not the operator we know today.
No. And one of the things I'll say, I entered into psychiatric hospitals for wanting to take my own life, residential. I entered into drug rehabs, residential in high school. Things that were just very much out of place, out of normal. And I just thought it was a game. I thought it was just, this is what you do. This is just kind of, if you live this type of life, this is what happens when you do this. And it was just like, and what, you can't tell something to somebody that already knows everything. And that was my thing. Like, if I already know everything, I can't hear anything you're saying. So that kind of pattern really ran from the time I was 14 until I was 26. In that time frame, I dropped out of high school, got my GED, tried a little bit of college, wasn't really for me. I love to learn, but I hate school.
Same.
I love to learn, but I hate school. And it's not because I'm stupid, So one of the things that over time, I just was one of those guys that would be in a crowd. I was always popular, always dated and had women in my life, but I wasn't really ever loyal. And the one thing that I can say is that when you're stuck in that trap of just absolutely being full of shit with yourself and everyone else, it reduces your integrity, And I call it the harmonious effect of integrity, right? Like you lower your integrity with your behavior, your self-worth follows. Right?
That's real.
So if you're living low, then you're probably going to be feeling low, right?
Amen.
And then over time, it conversely, right? If you elevate your behavior, right, then you start to have more self-worth, and then you accomplish things with achieving higher levels of behavior, then that confidence will follow as a result, right? So just a little quip on something learning about digging myself out of living low integrity, right? Because if you study anything with Socrates, he'll tell you that no long-term harm can come of a man so long as integrity is intact, right? Real personal catastrophe happens in corruption of the soul, right? So if I'm living a life where I'm fulfilling, reaching and grabbing everything externally to fill a God-shaped hole within me, right? And I'm not trying to fill it from within and then spread, I'm never going to be able to fill that. There's nothing in life externally that can do. Thank God throughout those years, and again, I had to deal with some despicable things that I did to people I love. To women in relationships, again, some terrible things, and again, I had to go back and clean that up. But again, one of the things that helped me was Florida Department of Corrections.
I've been there a couple times.
Because if you don't want to change your behavior, and you live past the limits in a dysfunctional way, and you're a threat to society, then they're going to take you against your will and put you in a place where you're going to be taught and where you don't have a choice about how you behave. They're going to place you there, and there ain't shit you can do about that.
Not a damn thing.
But one of the things that I'll say about that is I realized very quickly after that kept happening time and time again, I was a victim, because I'm looking around and I'm doing the same things that everyone else is doing, but I'm getting caught.
Talk that talk, Joe.
Right? It's like, for so long, the only language I knew was victimese, And
that's deep, bro.
And now I can't even understand that language because I don't even speak it, right? But the reality is that it took me long enough. It took me till I needed to be done, right? Like, for even your experience, like, you had to be at like rock bottom to say, hey, all right, I need to get some help and I need to get over this. I can't keep going on like this, right? And so I think the big catalyst for me at that time was I had a son that was getting ready to be born, and I had just gotten in trouble again. Second DUI, 2 within 5, so automatic 5-year revocation of my license, whole bunch of mess, jail time, all this stuff. And I'm just looking around and I'm like, who am I? Who is this person, right? Because although I was living that way, my mother instilled good values in me, right? They were there. So the lowering of integrity was even worse because I knew better, right? There's plenty of people that just behave that way because that's all they know. That's
right,
where they
it's
came
their
from.
habits, like their family.
Yeah.
What's the old saying? If you knew better, you'd do better.
Yeah, and it's that generational context, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, like that catalyst, my son Damien, who's now 13, going on 14, like, I just woke up one day and I'm like, I can't imagine my son seeing me like this. Right?
That's deep.
Right? Like, in my mind, I'm just like, man, I got to do something. So, you know, again, one of the things that you said when you were speaking earlier, and again, thank you for the recognition and compliments, but you said the presence, right? Feeling that presence. The only reason when you're leading teams at a high level that you can make such a deep impact is because you have personal leadership yourself. I don't need to tell people I'm a leader. You know what I'm saying? When I step into a room, they feel that shit because of the compounding effect of being daily obsessed with growing and personal development to run as far away from that person that I was for 13 years.
Boss
right?
talk.
They feel that vibe,
Boss
like you admit
talk.
that in your presence, for sure.
You know what
Without
I'm
saying anything.
And the big thing is one of the things that I realized is that it's really a matter of focus, right? Because, like, I remember having no job, no car, no bank account, no money, sleeping on my boy's couch, and between 3 and 5 o'clock, I could be at a bar somewhere drinking some beer. Dude, that's freaking remarkable.
It's pretty outstanding.
That takes
That's crazy.
perseverance,
Effort.
grit, tenacity, focus, right?
So you tell me that you used everything that you were doing before and you translated that into something positive.
Yeah, because the intrinsic traits were already there and available to me. It's just I focused on not on the destruction of myself and chasing that external just fix, and you focus on personal growth, being kind, affecting change in the world, impacting others through your experience, right? Being a great dad, right? All of these things, because those traits are already available to me, so why not put them into something that's going to raise my integrity?
Like being able to channel it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely experienced something similar to that, for sure.
Powerful, bro.
I mean, that's how the brain works.
You taught me that, brother.
Dude, it's crazy. So in school, for me, all my teachers were like, "You're so smart," because I had a really high IQ. They're like, "You're so smart, but you keep getting distracted and distracting other people." and I feel you when you say, like, I love learning, I just don't like school, right? Like, that's, I mean, dude, I gamed the whole high school system, dude. Like, I didn't show up for half of my senior year and graduated with a 3.8 GPA. Because my GPA was so high that I could afford to not go. Like, how crazy is that? Because I was like, this isn't going to make me money. Like, by the time I was already a junior, I had made my first $20,000 online within 6 months, bro. And I just got out of the matrix. Like, I got out of that, like, higher education bullshit. Because I'm like, okay, I'm learning from someone that I get paid half their salary.
That destroys the teacher and the hierarchy.
I just can't. It doesn't compute in my mind anymore.
And I think it's the teacher too, right?
Absolutely.
Because if the teacher is a leader of
Which none of them
students
are.
in class, but I'm
Not
sure
all of them.
Okay, but
sure
there's
you can
1%.
think of, I'm sure in your schooling you can think of one or two.
One, and I made a video about her, Mrs. Sanchez. She changed my life, and she taught me how to deal with my emotions. And at that age, I didn't understand. But looking back and remembering that, because I was being bullied by someone because they found out that my mom walked out on me and my dad. And it really, really fucking hit a nerve for me. And she watched it happen. And she pulled me to the side and was like, Laura, you need to learn how to control your emotions, because I know you're going to be successful in life, and that's what successful people do.
That's powerful.
And at the time, I just didn't know how to understand it. But looking back, I'm like, holy shit, she just spit so much wisdom at me, and now I get it, because I'm a whole different person. Because
you're alive, you're awake. And, from all of this, they told me I had a learning disability. And I remember Mrs. Shriver, my 5th grade teacher, gave me the Perseverance Award. And that resonated with me. And my mother always tells me that. And you really cannot let someone's opinion become your reality. And they just passed me because I was charming, and they just did that. And you can't take shortcuts. And, when somebody tells you something about you, you don't have to believe them, especially coming from somebody that's not speaking life into you. So all of these things are harmonious, and being successful doesn't mean that you start off being successful. It means that you grow into it. And I think it's really amazing, us three coming together, because I know both of you very well. And a couple of years ago, this synergy would not have happened at all. And we're growing, and I'm so honored and proud to be able to be in both of your presence. I know Joe has spoken so much life into me, and he always believed in me. And there's a lot of people that didn't believe in me, but he saw something in me. And if there's somebody out there, wait for somebody that sees something for you, but make a move before you're ready. And this man's impacted me so much, and that energy transferred. I gave so much love because he taught me love and to be kind and all of those things, to be a gentleman. And, I've utilized that skill for communication, being charming for positive, and, being around Laura and working together on empathy and seeing her growth. Oh my God, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. This is something serious. I'm not playing. Like, I got chills what's going on right now. Joe, can you feel me?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'll say is that you portray yourself as a big angry man. You know what I'm saying? So there wasn't a long line of people that were ready to love you in the way that you needed to be loved. And that was to step up in front of your face and be like, yo, bro, you're fucking full of shit. You don't know how full of shit that you are. Your eyes are brown right now. Right? So why don't you take a look in the mirror?
Cody has light eyes.
By the way. So why don't you take a look in the mirror, work on personal leadership, and then you can start impacting others. And as soon as you made that shift, it transformed your whole life. But the problem is that no one was ever courageous enough to love you in that way in order for that to be the outcome of what it was that you actually needed. Because an effective leader knows exactly what it is that you need in the most effective way. And it wasn't about me pointing out how right I was. It was about being the most effective to help you see the potentiality within yourself so that it could awaken you, right? Because the central role of a leader is to create breaks in the current reality of someone that you're leading, so then they can see a new limitless possibility for the future that they were previously blind to, which means they didn't even know it was there, right? And when we create those breaks, then guess what? You get to sit in a room with the three of us and do what we do because it feels good. Whereas before, this wouldn't have ever happened because of the people that we were.
I'm going to let you know right now, it hurt. It hurt. It was very hard. And life is hard. And sometimes you just need the damn truth. And the truth hurts. But I did it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was intelligently ignorant. I had no clue. I was in pain. I was suffering. We all have our backgrounds, but that doesn't make it right. And yeah, I was angry, and I didn't want to listen to anybody. I didn't want to listen to a damn person, not anybody, because I was pissed off at life. I tried to play God. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to fix every single thing, but guess what? I wasn't fixing myself.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It was beautiful. It was graceful. It was beauty. And it just takes a certain human being Like Joe, I trust him. You know, when we come from the same background. I didn't know when we were sitting in class together, you know, at 14, 15 years old, that he was eating Xanax and everything. I had no clue. I was just like, yo, why is this guy sleeping right over here? Why is this guy sleeping? Why is he sleeping at class? See, I was like, what is? I'm like, and I'm freestyle rapping in a Christian high school. You know, we both didn't make it there too long. And I'm like, yo, this guy, I like this guy. He's cool, but he keeps sleeping in class. I didn't know what that meant. You know, I mean, I wasn't doing any drugs until I was 16. I smoked a lot of weed then, but I wasn't. I played basketball, and you know, I just really, you know, we love hip hop, and it's just funny how we reconnected. Can you know, tell that story? Because, you know, I was really working on myself, and I had we haven't talked to each other in how long?
Oh man, we hadn't talked to each other. Well, we saw each other out in the clubs a couple times.
I was really high.
But other me too.
I was feeling good.
But other than that, it was you know, since like '98.
Yeah.
So here's that's a really cool story, and so in 2016, during the election, I saw some shit I never thought I'd see before in terms of like just toxic messaging with the election. I saw people that were like friends for years, like freaking breaking their relationships. It was madness, right? And
that's what they want.
A lot of Facebook fights out there,
for sure. the divisiveness, you know. And so I was pissed, and it was all going down, of course, on Facebook, you know. Yep. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do something that's in my control, and I'm going to get off of Facebook for all of 2017, and I'm going to make a daily commitment to myself that whenever I'm presented with an opportunity to serve somebody in the world, no matter how much it inconveniences my day, I'm going to do it every day. And I did it for the whole year. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it, not even my wife. You know, she figured it out a couple of months in, but it was just totally personal to me. Like Gandhi type shit, like be the change you want to be in the world, or like, you know, Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror type shit, you know, and so I did that, and it transformed my life. And what ended up happening is throughout that experience, the world that I was living in was not that world that I saw on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Like in the real world, most people are pretty kind if I'm kind to them.
100%, yeah.
Most people, if I'm serving them, because I'm so filled up, I have that available, they respond in a respectful manner, right? And I'll give you an example of one time, a really big time where I had an opportunity. I had the blessing to take my mom, my wife, and my son to a ski trip in Breckenridge, Colorado, right? It was my mom's dream vacation. She never got to do it. And, you know, quite the change from, you know, having me arrested in handcuffs out of her home naked, you know?
Oh, gosh.
So,
butt naked.
You know, yeah, butt naked. So, you know, again, we're coming back from skiing on the mountain all day. We're getting ready to go shower and go to dinner. And there's this truck stuck in the embankment on the side of the road. So I pull over, and this guy's stuck on the side of the road, and he can't get out. So we're pushing. I go drop my family off. I grab a shovel, and I dig this guy all the snow off the front of his truck, and he gets out. And I'll never forget the visual of his face when he came up and hugged me. He was like a 22-year-old kid. If I could bottle the gratitude that was in his eyes and drink that every day, like I'd have everlasting life, right? But the more important thing is my son saw me do that. My mom saw me do that. My wife saw me do that. And not for any sake of like, I want to show them I'm a good person.
Mm-hmm. I just
am. That's what I'm being, right? So that was one of the cool parts, you know, and then throughout the, you know, helping people with stuff and groceries and doors and all these things. But what ended up happening is in 2018, I turned the Facebook back on, right? I honored that commitment to myself the whole year. You do one thing really well all year, you surprise yourself how good you feel about yourself, right?
You taught me that, brother.
Compound effect. So when I turned the Facebook back on, I see this guy, and he's all on that Les Brown shit. And
I ain't playing.
I love Les Brown. Like, I have loved Les Brown forever. My son knows Les Brown. That's the best compliment I can give Les Brown, is that my son knows who he is, right? Generational. So I'm like, he's got this event and all this stuff going on. So I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, man, we should talk, man. I've been doing, personal development for about, 9 years now.
Dude, I remember this.
Yeah.
I remember this exact moment.
Yeah. This is the big moment.
You were like, dude, this guy just hit me up from school.
Yep.
I'm
about to sell him some tickets. That was on my mind. And also I was like, I want to see this dude.
So we met, and we were sitting down at Carrabba's.
And I really thought I was working on myself as hard. I mean, I was working on myself. And then I met this guy and I realized, okay, not till a little more later, but I'm telling you, I'm not gonna be the number one motivational speaker on the planet. I'm doing all my personal development, and I was very intentional. I thought, and I was doing a lot better than I was. And then this guy came around. Just to kind of pivot off that.
Yeah, I mean, I was at that time, so that's what, 2018?
It was like 2017, 18.
Yeah, I was I had already done like deep shadow, like Jungian shadow work in like 2011, overcoming my codependency and my relationship issue.
This guy's got his shit together. I'm like, I like this. I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm like, man, I'm like, at that time I wouldn't admit it that this guy's he's on a higher level than me. But my angry, big bad tattooed self is like, man, we're on the same level. I was nowhere near that. And I had to realize that it was like a come to Jesus thing for me. And I remember sitting there with him, and it was a great moment. And he definitely was big dick in it, as we like to call it, BDI. And he said, I want the most expensive ticket, VIP, and I think you purchased two, if I'm not wrong. I'm pretty sure.
No, I got one of those, and then a couple of the other ones for other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he also. You can talk more about, of course, he's volunteering after he buys the biggest ticket and decides to get involved, and just because of the great human being he is. And I think you ended up like catering.
I ended up doing the food for the event.
Of course
for all
you did.
Guys.
Yeah.
It's just you gotta serve.
You taught me that, man. You taught me that.
It was a good time.
It was a great time. It was a learning experience. And I know you probably had to deal with a lot of stuff, in your life where people were telling you stuff you didn't want to hear, man. And
I try and stay around people like that.
That tell you things you don't want to hear.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's the only way to grow.
Well, when you're at your place you're right now, I love it now.
Well,
like constructive criticism?
No, just
yeah.
I know what you're talking about too, but I feel like.
Well, no, what I was saying earlier, right? When we were talking to Mama, right? Mm-hmm. I said it's because you're not emotionally tied to the outcomes.
Yep.
So
detachment.
Like what I said about like the leadership thing, right? The role of a leader to create those breaks so that you can see a new reality that you were previously blind to. Like it or not, all humans on the planet have blindness, right? So if you have people in your life that you trust and you love, and they've accomplished certain levels that you admire in whatever domain that you have that mentor for. Like, I have domains in all areas of my life. I have a spiritual mentor, I have an emotional mentor, I have a mental mentor, I have a financial mentor, I have a physical mentor, right? Like, the reason I look like this is because he looks like that. And then I don't try and tell him what to do. I just do whatever he tells me, and this is the 4-year outcome, right? Like, daily. But
boom.
So the thing is that when you are emotionally tied to the outcome, your mind will subconsciously try to manipulate the story that you want to produce that outcome.
Ooh, say that again, please. Because I think this is super important, specifically to our clients.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're emotionally tied to the outcome of what it is that you want, you're going to subconsciously manipulate the story to behave and act in a way that you think will get you that outcome. A great mentor or a great leader will point out what you should and shouldn't do in order to achieve that. And the basis of a mentor different from a coach. A mentor has the experience that you're going to, they leverage that experience, they share it with you so that you can avoid those mistakes and generate the outcomes that you want, right? Whereas a coach is not the expert in you or the outcome that you want. They hold a space for you, and through powerful questionings help you discover the answers and all of the things that you already have inside of you to see what right action to take to generate the result that you want, right? So the distinction is the experience. So I look for mentors that have the experience and the outcomes that I want, and then when I have something that is a big deal in my life, I leverage that, and that's the humility piece, right? And
yes.
Again, a lot of people have a lot to say about humility, but I think a lot of people have it a little bit misconstrued. My favorite definition of humility is a clear recognition of who and what you want, followed by a sincere attempt to become what you could be, right? And if I'm blind to what I could be, then maybe I should have people in my life pointing that out to me, so then I can see new limitless possibilities for what it is I could become. And then when I do that, then I'm on fire because I'm a new being. I am, right? And then,
it's the growth.
Yeah, exactly.
It's powerful.
So, like that's the emotional outcomes part, right? And again, if I'm not emotionally tied to it, then I'm not using emotions to make the decisions on what I should do.
Right? Exactly.
I'm using logic. I'm using calculated logic in order to do that, right?
Because emotions self-sabotage you, especially if you haven't healed from it.
There's that, because you're running on an old paradigm, right? That's generating, right? So that's how the mind works, right? Paradigms, are there. That's the patterns of behavior that we have. So when I told you that I did that work in 2011, that's what I was unraveling. The generational context that was passed on to me subconsciously by my parents that I had to unravel, at the same time pulling them down from the pedestal of my superhero next to me level as a human being and living together in humanity. But throughout that process, you have to unravel the resentments of their own humanity that was passed on to you, right? Because humans are by nature defective in the sense that we're not perfect. So we're going to pass those imperfections on to everyone around us, whether we like it or not, because we're all contagious, right? It's emotional contagion. And especially from the time you're born until you're 7, in the identity printing stage of your subconscious mind, because you're running on subconscious, not conscious, right? So working through all of those things and getting past those resentments, what it does is sets you up with the ability to show up for people because you've done the fucking work.
Yes.
Right? Because you can't transmit something you ain't got. You 100%. Can sit here and fake the funk to everybody else, but all of us that have done the work, we can sit there and be like, yo, that guy's full of shit.
Something's
right there.
off.
Yep. You know.
The red flags pop up.
So it's like, okay, and great, maybe they're way more successful.
That don't mean shit.
And what? Finance and business? Okay, great. But remember what I told you was the most important thing in the world. Integrity.
Yep.
And self-worth.
And that's one of your 5 core values, correct?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, love, faith, integrity, money, humor.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my top 5.
That's an activity that...
And if you don't believe me, just go ahead and look on my Facebook profile and on my Instagram profile. My top 5 are always there. Because if that's my bio and you ask me who I am, well, that's who I am. Because that's how I behave. And behavior is a reflection of the character, which is who I am. Right? Pretty simple. It's very simple when you lay things out. Right? So I guess I can parlay that into another daily practice that I know I've shared with Cody, and maybe it's nothing new. It's, Benjamin Franklin's done it. All sorts of people have done this shit. And it's those top 5. I'm very practical with my approach to how I like to live life. And I take those top 5 and I assess every single night in a nightly contemplation, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes of just stillness, and I reflect on my day. How did I behave? right? Because if we're sitting here talking about I had a character building decade, or I'm having a character building moment,
what did you do about it?
Right. Well, then what is it that I need to sit with and assess? What is it that, like, if I'm going to go through it and I totally shit the bed in something, I don't want to just let that pass by. I want to know, why did I behave that way? What emotions surfaced during that allowed me to get to that level and behave in a manner that's out of character for me normally day to day? What is the meaning that I need to pull out of this experience? Do I need to make an amends to that person and clean that shit up, right? But then conversely, and you take my behavior and I flow it through those five values, right? Love, faith, integrity, money, humor. And that's just, okay, you do that. But then also, you say, where did I really show up? Where did I show up and really behave in those? And then pat myself on the back, because everybody loves to focus on just all the shit and what you need to work on, but you need to really recognize when you show up for you. And one of the things that I say to every person I meet is the most important person in your world is always watching you. Yeah. So you can fake out everybody in the world, but it's what we do when we're alone that really matters.
That's the reps, baby.
I love that. Like, I love that you assess your day. I think that's really important. I do that as well. So my two questions is, where did I win today? And where did I feel uncomfortable? And when those emotions show up, I dissect the emotion. Like, why did I feel uncomfortable? What was the scenario? What was the uncomfortable stuff that I felt?
Sure.
You know, was it out of fear? Was it like, what was it?
What have you learned from doing that?
Dude, I learned that, like, sometimes I just react, you know, instead of like taking the time to assess the scenario and you know, respond rather than like react. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's helped me with that a lot. Obviously, I think there's like a lot more room to grow. But two very big things that actually, who was it taught me that? Alex Sharfin, you know him? Mm-mm. No. He's like a big operations guy too. Nice. So he's the one that taught me that. And yeah, just like making it a part of your daily routine and dissecting those scenarios, because you might have something with that person that made you feel uncomfortable and you need to figure it out.
Yeah. I did the same thing, just my own activity, and one of my 11 rituals that I wrote down is, at the end of the day, what did I do right today? And most of all, what could I have done differently? And I don't say wrong, because that's a negative connotation to the brain. So I've been taking personal inventory. You know, what did I do right today? You know, when did I show up? When didn't I show up, and why? And then really focus on that and take a breather and really understand that you're responsible for everything in your life, physically, mentally, spiritually, everything that you have right now. You're responsible for that. So when I started doing that and really executing that, and I call it personal inventory, and reviewing it, then you understand who you are. And, you know, we all have our different, you know, ways of doing it, but it's worked out for me tremendously. And I highly recommend everyone to utilize what we're saying in your own way, however you want to do it, but be honest with yourself, because that's what's going to build up massive confidence. And it's not a fake thing, it's real. When you are confident with who you are, then you will take over your mind, your body, your spirit, and then you're able to map out and attract what you want in life. That's manifestation. When you're able to attract things, but you can't do that until you understand who you are and how to do this. And you know what I'm saying?
Well, like James Allen said in As a Man Thinketh, you know, we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are.
Absolutely.
100%. I think accountability is like a great point, right? Mm-hmm. Like, yes. I would love to ask you, how do you deal with people that are not willing to take accountability inside your organization?
Great question. Well, we have a discussion about it, right?
Yeah, so like, do you coach them first and then let them go if they don't change, or like, how does that work?
Yeah. So, first of all, let's take a step back, right? So if you're looking at organizational leadership, there's 5 key components, right? There's technical, there's functional, right? Which you're really great at that. right? Because you know paid ads like the back of your hand, right? So you're really great at delivering the marketing, the technical and the functional, right? And that's why people are attracted to you, because that's what they think they need in their business to succeed.
But they don't. That's the last part.
Right. There's the other three, and you'll know about this, right? In your role, is there's conversational, there's emotional, and there's relational, right? And specifically when it comes to accountability, well then guess what? It starts with a conversation about accountability. It's an accountability conversation, because all action is generated through conversations within any organization, right? Or in life in general, right? So
communication.
I would start with a conversation around their behavior. Okay. And it's not, hey, you're not doing this. Hey, what would you say the reason is why you missed that yesterday in the daily update?
So like it
Let
is
them
a
answer.
little kind of so like what I was coached on and like told is like come at it with a confused frame, like without attacking anybody.
Exactly.
So like
curious.
Yeah, I'm
Rather
like
than
super
confused,
confused
just be
on why
just
you
be
didn't
curious.
And
show
extremely
up,
authentic,
you know?
not condescending.
Yeah, but
extremely.
the only feedback I would say on that is they already know that you know. So if you act confused, it's condescending automatically.
That's what I'm saying.
Act curious. Hey, I'm just really interested why it was that you missed that on the daily update yesterday. What can you tell me about that? What can you tell me about that? Or, hey, what would you do differently next time? Because then when they answer, maybe they didn't get clear direction on what the task is, and then that's on me
Yes,
or us as a leader.
for sure.
If they do know, then now guess what happens? Now they know that we know
That they know. Yeah.
Okay, so then, okay, awesome. Well, it seems like you know what's going on. Make sure that happens in the future, because you already know what's going on. Then if it happens again, then the conversation intensifies, right? Then it's a little bit more direct. Hey, this is the second conversation that we're having about this same topic. One of the things that we like to have in terms of standards with high performers within our organization, and that you said when you come on is important to you as well, is driving the pace and not making the same mistakes twice. What is it that's blocking you from you getting this accomplished? Most of the time they're going to say, I don't have enough time, right? That's like the common answer, because most people don't know how to prioritize their day. They don't know how to prioritize their tasks. They don't know how to prioritize their life, because they haven't done any type of self-assessment to figure out what it is that they even want.
And I think
right?
it's important to note that like the people that do that are the entrepreneurs, are the high achievers, and like the people we're talking about right now is like they've had no incentive to want to do that. How do you make that go off in their head without like pushing it on? Like it has to be the thing they want internally, right?
Sure, you can. I can give you clear direction, I can give you hope, but I can't give you willingness to do the work and be better. That has to come totally within you, right? So then I think from there, everything, I'm a coach up or coach out type of guy.
Yeah.
I'm a coach up, coach out type of guy. Like, I'm going to coach you up until I coach you out, right? And if I'm having to have the same conversation with you and we start getting into 3 or 4 times, then it's okay, first time, second, okay. Well, the third time I have to talk to you about something, it's going to be a documented conversation. Like, hey, I'm just letting you know, these are all the reasons why it's important for you to get this accomplished. We've already had 2 feedback conversations now. This is a written documentation. I'm the person that actually hired you, which means I want you to be here, right? But I need you to show up in the person that you said that you are in the interview, right? I need you to show up in hitting the standards that we have in the business, right? And if you can't do that, then I'll take that basically as the reason why you no longer work here. Because there's only 2 reasons why people don't work with me. 1, they move on, they get promoted, they do this, do something else, blah, blah, blah. Or 2, their behavior leads me to believe they no longer want to work within our organization, right? And if I've kept my side of the street clean, clear direction, preparation, scalable systems, the tools to be successful, and you're just underperforming, then I can't do that, But also as a leader, we have to look at trust as well, the trust model.
Yes.
And you have history, you have reliability, and you have competency, right? A lot of times, one of the big key areas that leaders make in organizations is they place people in roles that they're not competent in and then wonder why they fail.
Preach.
Okay, so it's also our job as leaders to put, as we call, aces in their places. And you know when somebody's doing a great job because they're just dialed in, you know?
Position of power.
But also too, the other thing is that, you know, from my experience and what I was taught is I always rank people in A, B's, and C's, right? A's are your A players, you got your B's, and you got your C's. Well, the way that things churn, especially in the entrepreneurial space, which, you know, with turnover, you know, you're always looking to backfill your C's. And people
What
think...
do you mean by that?
Because C's should be the people that you're coaching out.
Out.
Yes.
A is top performers. You barely need to even, you know, worry about them.
They're the ones that are making improvements in the business
without
innovating
asking
in their role,
for it.
without
And
asking.
they're entrepreneurial. And also, if you are all up in them, they're going to be like, stop.
Yeah, they don't want to be micromanaged.
They
You
don't,
don't have
and you
to.
don't need to, and that's a
You don't
big
need
mistake. And like the B players are just, you know, right between there. They're almost.
Yeah, but the drill sergeant doesn't yell at the person that folded his bed right, made his bed
Exactly.
right, and got it, you know,
Yep.
made his boots perfectly clean. He's yelling at the person that's holding everybody down, you know?
Yep.
So the other thing is that people want to focus on, well, I got to coach up the C's to make a B's. And it's like, no, you have better chances of making a B an A than you do a C a B.
Wow, that's like super valuable for me to hear, because that is the intention we went in with when we started hiring, specifically for our sales team, because my VP of sales, like, his whole thing is like, I can turn a shitty closer or someone that has no experience in sales and turn them into a sales professional. But what we found is like, yeah, we can do that, but they also don't have the character traits of like a true A player. You know, like, they just become a better closer.
That's a talent selection issue then. That's a talent selection issue. I mean, you can do
Drop
that.
a bomb on that.
You can do that if you want to, because like he said, they're not coming with any bad habits. But that's if you want to have a 6 to 12 month runway in your business.
That's how long it
But
took.
that's not how you guys are moving.
Nope.
Yeah.
You're trying to scale faster than that.
Well, now we got rid of that whole team because they became really toxic. Like, our best closer that was making the most money with us, he was also super disrespectful to people on the team. He was bringing them down.
Yeah.
So we just got rid of that whole team. We rehired, and retraining is the long, like, the patience muscle I'm building.
A new muscle that you're learning to flex.
How's that working out?
Better.
I mean, it's definitely better for sure. It's not as toxic, or I don't think it's toxic at all. Like, I think we're putting the right people in place to
definitely have a
help
good
people
culture now.
level up. Yeah, the culture's better, but it's the skill set of closing. So for us, it's really hard to bring in a closer and put them at a closing position, because we really need them to understand our whole sales process and how we work. Because, like, for example, we don't do one call closes. We hate that shit. It has to be a 3-step sales process. They have to understand how to disqualify people, because not everybody's a good fit to work with us. Like, they can't be money hungry. They can't have commission breath. And I think that's something that's taught by being an appointment setter first and then going into the closing position. So we make people like, validate their skills by setting appointments, understanding who our ideal avatar is, why we DQ people, and just, like, knowing what a headache client looks like and not letting them go through, because that's also a problem we had. They were too commission driven and we're letting everybody in, and now the back end team and me are dealing with headaches.
Sure.
And where does that responsibility lay on, Laura?
Mine. It's my responsibility.
Yeah, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Like, honestly, I'm enormously proud of you. You've grown so much since I've met you. We've worked together, and I've grown, you know, and you've grown. But I'm
Grow or die.
100%
Grow or die, for real,
straight
dude.
up.
5 components of organizational leadership, right? And that's not just within our own organization, right? If you're in the biz ops space, you're in the coaches space, right?
You need an EE.
Well, like you said, you're giving them the strategy and tactics. Well, that's the technical and the functional.
Yeah, which I'm really good at.
Yeah,
You're the best.
but they need the relational, emotional, and conversational, right? And that's why incorporating those aspects into your own business and the businesses that you serve and teaching them that as well will help generate the results that they say they really want in spite of themselves.
Right. I've noticed that a lot of people say they want something, but they're not willing to change to become the person that actually deserves to have that thing.
Sure, because their commitment isn't bigger than themselves.
It was just crazy.
They have what they want. Their commitment needs to be
That's why you start with why.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you gotta fucking start with why. That's the foundation of everything that you're building.
Mm-hmm.
Why, who, and how. In that order.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's the culture thing like we were talking about earlier. You know, it's like as you start to, you know, what you're doing right now, you're going to see the results of that in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's what culture is, right? Instilling those values and those changes and those competencies into the business is going to reap benefits that right now are unseen, right? But you're just doing it because you know it's number one, it's the right thing to do because you're upholding your integrity.
Yes.
Plus, it feels right, you know.
Oh, it feels so good.
Not only that, most of the time we know what we should be doing because we've already fucked everything up to get to the point where we're like, all right, I want to try something different. I want to try something different. Maybe I want to be a little bit different. You know, and start working on some things. And then next thing you know, you start bringing in people in the recruitment process that match these new values to compound that culture.
You know what I think is interesting? It's like, so we had a big issue with like the sales team bringing in the wrong people. Mm-hmm. Now, because I was made aware of it, took accountability for it, now the perfect people are showing up. Like back to back to back, perfect.
Because of you.
Because I decided to change and become aware instead of like ignoring the problem, which is what I did for like 3 months because I came from a place of scarcity. Oh, I don't want to let go of my best performing closer.
Sure. How am I going to get this money?
But like the money's attracted to me. Like I had just forgotten. And sometimes that happens. You just forget and you have to like realign with yourself. You know, I think that's like super interesting.
Some people forget, and then once you find the way, you never forget.
No, I mean you do though. Like I think you really have to remind yourself every day.
That's a part of the rituals that you develop. Because I know you and I, you know, because of the addiction that we have. We all have addictions. Structure is everything. Discipline equals freedom. So there's the days that I'm sure all of us don't do our reps, what I like to say, mental, physical, everything. If we don't do our reps and we're in personal development and we're guiding people to success, it's not gonna play out the way that we should. And when we are consistent, I like to say consistent disciplined behavior, and we just do the little things every single day, it's like brushing your teeth. And guess what? The magic starts happening. And we do forget. We do have those moments, of course, but it doesn't happen as much when we're working ourselves and we're surrounding ourselves.
Well, so think about it this way, right? Just from a purely like mindset standpoint, in terms of how the mind works, right? So I told you in 2017, I did that thing every day. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm going to help one person every single day for a year. The next year, I'm like, oh, I really like that. I'm going to do this again. And then in 2018, it was anytime somebody pops into my mind, I'm going to pick up the phone and call them or text them and tell them I'm thinking about them and I love them.
That's powerful. I do that every single day, dude.
It's crazy.
It just attracts so much good energy to you.
And every single time, like you reach out, it's like,
I love you.
Oh, I was just thinking about you, or there had something going on or whatever, and there's this disconnective energy, right? And then, so that was 2018. 2019, when I worked at the office, I parked in a different spot every day to challenge myself to remember where I parked, to be mindful and still, right, going in, and there was 2 days in the year I forgot where I parked. Right? So I was also keeping score with myself.
That's awesome.
And then in 2020, I ate one meal a day with my left hand, right? Because I eat like it's the last meal I'm ever going to eat on the planet. Every time I eat, like I'm at a restaurant,
You gotta be hungry,
dude. I eat so fast, but it helped me slow down and be conscious. But to your point, like you have these habits, but when you're starting to build a new habit, you're very conscious of it, right? I can't remember the last time I thought about how I hold my fork. But when I'm holding it brand new with my left hand, I'm very conscious of it because I've never done it before, right? It's this, and we think that somehow within our organization that somehow that's different, and it's not. This is new. I'm a beginner at this. I need to go through the process of building these new grooves in my brain through habitual, right, habits that then will lead to the success that I say I want, right? Because the only clear indicator of future results is habits. That's it. So when you're building new habits, and if you like Atomic Habits by James Clear, I highly recommend that book. It's
really
fantastic. But it's like in the beginning, I don't give myself any type of grace, right, in that declaration of being a beginner. Maybe I never even declare myself as a beginner in the first place. Because once I do make that declaration to be a beginner, then I'm opening myself up to allowing learning to take place.
Yes.
Right? Because we're indoctrinated into an educational system that grades us on the quality of our answers, not the quality of our questions. So then I've been locked into an addiction to answers. Right? So it stops me from going through the process of being a beginner in something because I have this belief that I should already know.
Joe, would you say that has something to do with a big thing that I had? It starts with the E. Ego?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something with us actually admitting we're a beginner.
But also, too, it's deeper than even ego. Because it's cultural context. It's cultural norm to take standardized tests and be graded on our answers and have that drilled into you from a young age. You have to know. And if you don't know, you get in trouble.
5 years old, you get in trouble.
You get in trouble if you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? So when you get into the world and you're running and you're overseeing an organization, right? What type of grace do I allow for myself as a leader in an organization? What type of grace do I allow for my team members when they're new to get to that point? I'm not saying that we should hold low performance and high value. That's not what I mean, right? What I mean is we have to get the repetitions in order for me to be successful at it, right? Because there's levels to this, right? In terms of how the brain works, right? There's unconscious incompetence, there's conscious incompetence, right? Incompetence. There's conscious competence, and then there's unconscious competence, right? Just like holding my fork in my right hand. It's the same as breathing. So what are the things that I can standardize in my business, right, that become unconscious competence to then free up my brain, right, to innovate, to improve, all these things. And that's when you discover A players, that's what they're doing. They become so great at the basics that they begin to see new things within the frameworks because their brain is freed up to have the ability to create because they're not trying to be consciously aware of what they're doing step by step in the beginner stage, right? But with the mastery curve, it's like you're going along, bump up. You get that spike of learning, right? And then you decrease a little bit, and then you plateau, and people get pissed because they're in the plateau, right? And they don't stick with it long enough. It's like with Cody, with freaking coaching people in fitness. The first 60 days, man, your body is changing. You're losing all sorts of weight, man, and you feel great. By 4 month, like 3, 4, and 5, nothing happens. And people give up. But you're in the plateau.
4 to 6 months.
Right?
That's
and then,
right where
and
it
then
is.
6 months, you get another burst. of improvement. It's the same with learning in terms of our job function, our tasks, right? So then once we get people in positions that they're at the level of, unconscious competence, and these are things that I know Brad Lee talks a lot about.
Love it.
They're able to make such a large impact in your organization that their value is almost immeasurable because you don't even have to manage them.
Yep.
So it's like, how can I create an environment through my culture where I attract that type of talent and then hold the space for people to grow into that?
And then the question also, how do you retain that type of talent?
Yeah. Well, the number one reason why people leave any organization or any job is because of their direct boss. The number one reason why they don't like their direct boss or they quit their direct boss is because they don't get feedback. Right? And that doesn't mean you're following everyone around giving them a trophy,
Would you say everybody wants to be heard? At least
you're also, saying, hey, right? Like this isn't, you're not doing this as well as I think you could be doing. Right? So even with the A players, right? You can say, okay, what are the other things that you could take off your plate? You could take off your plate and provide them development to grow within the organization. Right? So I ran a $4 million restaurant for 5 years. I had 80 staff. I literally did nothing in terms of tasks. All I did was go to charity golf events, coffees, Chamber of Commerce,
and restaurants is a heavy operational business, probably the worst of the worst.
And everybody wants to do that first before they do what he did. It's called the work.
Well, you develop your team members up to a level by taking the things off of your plate, right? So my managers, I spent the time with them, showing them how to do my job, because they want to be me. So then, they could do it. And then once I felt comfortable, I handed it off. Then we would move on to the next thing. Then it was their responsibility and mine to hand off some of their shit to the hourly associates, right? Okay, you do more, you earn more. I'm not going to just pay you, I've been here a year, give me a raise. Okay, well, what is the extra that you have done to earn extra, right? Yeah. So, but also we need to go to people and the A players and give them more responsibility, right? Because if they're already doing a great job, sure. And I'm not saying the people that are just your true soldiers.
Gotcha.
Like every army that goes into battle, everyone's not generals. You have to have key soldiers, right? And that's all they'll ever be. And that's okay, right? But still, there are ones that you need to develop and have them move up to take things off your plate to be able to do the things that you need to be doing in your business. And that's focusing on people, strategy, execution, and cash. For
sure. I got another question for you. How do you deal with disagreements with the company CEO?
You have a conversation. Sit down and have a conversation. The reality is, in the organizations that I've been in, I always am the one that will put my hand up first to have the challenging conversations. And the reason is because I go day to day. Everyone says, I want to be happy. I want to have a great day. That's not real fucking life. That's not how life is. I want to have a meaningful day. And to me, an uncomfortable conversation with a leader or a staff member or anybody starts with an uncomfortable conversation that's going to be pretty meaningful. It's not going to be happy. It's not going to be joyous. It's not going to be delightful. I'm probably not going to feel good in it. But it will be memorable. Right? It'll be meaningful.
And you'll get clarity and have an outcome and know.
Yeah. And I think the only reason that there's ever a breakdown is due to expectations. Period.
Clear.
Right? And false expectations are only premeditated resentments. Okay, so
break that down.
Okay, so the majority of the time you're looking at things through your lens. I'm looking at things through my lens. So I'm basing my perception of how things should be off of the expectations that I have of myself, not the expectations that you have of yourself, the person.
So you're saying like you should have written expectations for everybody?
Well, I mean, they should have very, very clear expectations on what their role is, right? If there's disagreements, then you handle the disagreements. And if something becomes to a point where it's disagreeable and you need to part ways, then you need to do that. But all of the basis of that is encapsulated with trust. The foundation of all relationships on the entire planet is trust. And like I said, the core components of trust are reliability, competency, and history. History. Okay, how many times have we gone through this before? Great. You have a large body of work where you've honored your commitments to me, right? You're highly reliable, meaning you say you're going to do what you're going to do, right? Competency, you have the ability to do what you say you're going to commit to, right? Within that, you have those conversations throughout that with back and forth, right? Within my frameworks that I've learned, they're called speech acts, okay? Cody was talking about one of those before, and it's the most powerful speech act is a declaration. It's like, I was this way here, I made a declaration, now I'm this way, right? 1776, we were not the United States of America. We signed the Declaration of Independence. We sent it to the King of England. We're now the United States of America. It's like very clear distinction between the two, right? Then you get into the other ones, right? Requests, offers, promises. And people don't pick up on the power of language. If I said to you earlier that all action is generated through a conversation, then I should probably get very clear on the power of language. Meaning that if you request something of me, you're my CEO, and I say, yeah, I'll handle that. And you say, okay, great, make sure it's done by 11 a.m. And I say, yeah, I'll have it done by then. And then I show up at Friday at 11 a.m. and it's not done. Did I honor that commitment?
No.
Hell no. Now, if Thursday night I said, hey, I'm about 80% done, I'm not going to have that to you until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Is that okay if we just change that to 2 p.m.? Most likely you're going to say, yeah, 2 p.m. Or you're going to say, no, we got to launch this first thing in the morning. I need you to get it done. Okay? But that's that.
The act of communication.
That communication, that renegotiation of that commitment upholds the trust.
Yeah.
Now, let's think about it this way. You make a request to me, hey, have this sales page done by Friday at 11. And I say, okay, yeah, I promise I'll have that done to you. That one word has now heightened the intensity of that commitment. Promise. Yep, promise, right?
Yeah.
Or an offer. Hey, I see that we need to get this sale page done. Can I get that? Can I get that done? That's an offer, and either you can accept that or not, right? So much of the conversation in terms of that high level, like with a CEO, is based off of commitments, trust, and expectations. You should have open conversations about expectations. You should have open conversations about trust, and you should have open conversations about honoring commitments. So that way all three of those are taken care of. And if you do that, and you have those conversations, then it's really just wide out in the open of what the problem is, right? Here's the number one problem. Most people don't have those fucking conversations.
Yeah.
That is the difference. And then they're running off of their own story.
Assumptions, yeah. They're starting assuming.
And they're coming from a background of obviousness that's different from the other person. And in your own mind, you both believe that you're right. And then that's where the breakdown is, right?
Or conflict can happen.
Sure.
Right.
But chaos.
But you have to ask yourself every single day, am I the person that has the courage to have the conversation, no matter how uncomfortable it is?
Yep.
Because one of the things that I'll say is the most rewarding things about being a leader is that there's magical moments when you have those conversations. Deepest, meaningful moments of my life and my professional life have happened through that. And my personal life. Like, having a conversation with a CEO is kind of like having a conversation with your wife.
Yeah.
You know, it's very deep. Mm-hmm. So when's the last time you had a conversation with your wife about expectations? Or your husband? Whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So what else you got?
What's your decision-making style? Like, and I want you to give me an example of a situation where you had to make a quick, very impactful decision.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean? So just like
it's like it's something
Urgency.
that's subconscious for you. Like, it had to be a quick decision that you knew was going to make a huge impact. But what was the process that happened in your brain to get that decision out?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. I am super decisive. Like, that is one of my superpowers.
So would you say that definitely successful people are very decisive and they're slow to change that decision they make, and unsuccessful people are very decisive and quick to make changes?
I think unsuccessful people are not decisive at all, and that's
They're undecisive.
Yeah.
Would you say they're undecisive?
But I want to know Joe DiRoma's brain.
Okay, so this is how I think about things. One of the wisest piece of advices that I've ever gotten from a mentor, when I asked him, hey, what's the wisest piece of advice? And he ran a 9-figure business, was he said, when you make a decision, stick to it. All of the energy that is expelled leading up to a decision with worry and anxiety, is a waste of energy. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not saying don't make calculated decisions. That's not what I'm saying.
Right, like risk still matters.
Sure.
Like risk analysis.
What I'm saying is that, you know, I'm a big believer you can do whatever you want as long as you're willing to pay the consequences, right? I mean, that's something I teach my son. The way that I make decisions is I always come from a place of how does this flow through our core values, right? So if there's no difference in my business and in my life, right? The role that I've been in for a while now, it's very clear our core values and what they are. I train on them. All of our talent selection is a scoring session from them. We do all that. So every decision has those elements flowing through it.
Does it align with our core values?
Because those values is who it is that I say we are as an organization. Mm-hmm. The individual is the same as the collective. That's what people don't realize, right? Like you said, your sales team, the old one was toxic. Okay, if you didn't cut out that part, they were going to infect the whole body.
Everybody, yeah, for
right?
sure.
So the main reason why people can't make very quick decisions is because they have no foundational principles to make the decision, right? So if I say, these are my 5 to 7 core values within the frameworks of my business, every decision flows through that. And then as you get the reps of making those decisions based off of those core values, because they're already integrated in every fiber of your being, because that's who you are in your professional life, then you know what decisions to make, because you're not faking the funk. You're letting your highest integrity lead you, because you said this is who we are. Now, if I make a decision that's out of alignment with that, I'm going to feel that shit. I will feel every minute of it. And if you have really good team members on your team, they're going to say, why did you do that? Mm-hmm. That's not what we do. Mm-hmm. When you have people,
and then they hold you accountable,
and they hold each other accountable too. Mm-hmm. That's the best when it gets to that level, because they're so fully ingrained in the core values themselves, and that's culture. That is culture.
I love it, dude. That's a great answer. My other question for you would be, like, describe your typical daily tasks. Like, how do you prioritize?
I get this question asked a lot.
BDI. time.
Big dick in it.
What do you just,
Stop looking at it, man.
Oh, man. It's heavy.
So-
that thing is heavy, bro.
Yeah,
What do? You wrap that thing around your wrist and wear it as a watch, bro? What's up?
I'm just actually all balls. No.
Oh, that's so funny.
No, so the thing is like, for those of you that haven't read it, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is a remarkable book. And again, like Cody said earlier, it's not about being right, it's about being effective. And for me, I'm a husband, I'm a father, full-time dad of a teenager with sports and all that stuff. And I work in a highly volatile, chaotic, fast-paced entrepreneurial environment, right? Where speed is everything because that means money, you know? So the way that I look at my schedule is that everything in my life is scheduled. Everything. So whether it's my 35 hours of calls every week, which most people think is insanity, or the gym, drive to work, reading, date night, consume calories, whatever. It's all laid out. Because the problem with people is, and this goes back to my point with Covey, they prioritize their schedule rather than scheduling their priorities. Okay?
Geez.
So everything that's on my schedule is aligned with what my values are, of the way that I said I want to be and how I want my life to be. People think that like they're some sort of victim, like they don't have control over their shit. That's not how this works. You know what I mean? Like, so then guess what that does? For all you people pleasers out there that like to say yes to everything and then I'm overwhelmed and it's your fault because you keep asking me to do all these things. Boom, 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 boom. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up, right? And the reason I can say that is because I did a lot of work on being a people pleaser, because me being liked was the most important thing in my life. So I know how you feel, so I'm not saying that to judge you, I'm saying you to get over yourself. So here's what happens. You pull out your phone and Laura says, hey, are you able to make it over to my house on Friday at 2 o'clock? Hey, hold on, let me take a look at my schedule. Totally normal, right? Look at my schedule, right? And now we're starting to negotiate a commitment like I was talking about earlier. And I look at my schedule. No, I can't do 2 o'clock. I have a meeting from 2 to 3. Are you available at 3 or 3:30? Probably take me 30 minutes to get over here. No, I'm not available at 3:30. Okay. Well, what day's better for you? And then we go back and forth. But see, on my phone with my schedule that lays out all of my priorities, I'm in control
of where you can fit the time.
Of where I can fit the time in, right? Now, if it gets to a point where it's high value and also high dollar, and it takes and I should move something else to slot you in, well then I can do that. Then I can renegotiate the commitment with that other person to move that for that time being and then slide you in, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, 100%.
Period.
Same here.
Period. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I just want to be free-flowing and this and blah, blah. And it's like, no. Let me explain something to you. The only reason why I have so much space in my brain for creative, high-performing function is because of my schedule.
Because you create space.
Because I create space.
Because you're creating your life, the one you want to live.
Yeah. I'm running the show. The show's not running me.
Facts.
That's the difference, right?
You're the star of your show, baby.
I love it, dude. That's great. Next thing. Describe a situation where your team accomplished a specific goal. How did you motivate them?
So, again, we launched 5 funnels in 5 days. And one of them became actually a winning offer, which was fantastic, right? The reason why they were so motivated is because we were all in it together. And anybody.
So the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Synergy.
Right. So it's it's like the sunken ship syndrome, you know? It's like
I don't know what that is.
So you're on a sinking ship and it crashes, blah blah blah, and you know you're out to ocean for 2 days and there's 10 of you, and then you guys get rescued. You're forever in that moment connected with that person, right? In that space. It's the same thing when we create teams, right? They're all in that together, right? And if you create that space for them, right, and they're working together in that space because they're all in it together, you don't need any motivation because they're all running on high cylinders, right? All you're doing is air traffic controller at that time, right? You're just guiding the planes. And then you're coming in, okay, change leadership style here. Oh, I need some cheerleader over here. Okay, now I need some fitness coach over here. Okay, then, nope, need to do fireman here, right? So in your mind, you need to choose. And it's not about motivation, it's about showing up in effectiveness. Everyone's not looking for motivation. They're looking for leaders to lessen the friction for them to accomplish what we want them to accomplish. Then as a result of accomplishing that, they get the reward of the fulfillment of that accomplishment, which is far better than being motivated to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So within those leadership styles and moving around and moving those pieces, right? You just be very intentional about how you show up for those people to get it across the finish line, right? And also, each team member is different. Like you can't sit here and just think that you're going to motivate everybody the same way, right? Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by emotional connection. Some people are motivated by seeing that they got a haircut yesterday and you're the only person that noticed it, right? It's really close to like the love languages type shit, right?
Exactly.
You know, words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, stuff like that. It's your responsibility as a leader to know what is most important for them, to create that space for them to be most effective. And then you just do it, right? But you don't just sit back and like, oh, I assigned it, you guys will get it done. If you do that, right, someone has to be a leader, right? Most of us love extreme ownership from Jocko and Leif. It's fantastic in terms of leadership, right? They're remarkable, Navy SEALs. Even in those 7 people units, right? There's one squad leader. Well, then there's a leader above that, right? Maybe he oversees like 2 or 3 of those squads, but there's always one squad leader, right? So then it's also our responsibility to, if we're not the leader in that task or that project, to assign one, because then everyone knows who to go to to get the shit that they need to get it done, right? And that's a lot of times what's missing is just that communication of assigned responsibilities.
Yeah, and that military mind, obviously that's definitely something that we both listen to, is when you have a leader like a Jocko, what does he do differently? He gives somebody else an opinion and a voice to strategize, and then he makes the adjustments as the leader. And it's a brilliant. If you don't listen to him, I would definitely highly recommend. He's definitely somebody that takes complete ownership of himself, and when you take ownership for yourself, then other people are going to be attracted to that. I definitely highly recommend that you listen to him.
For sure. So since you are in the agency space, would you say that you would hire your project managers knowing that they have some type of leadership ability and then just help them develop that out?
Yeah. Yep. They're actually 2 separate skills. Project management skill and leadership skill are 2 highly, highly valuable skills within the agency model.
What's the biggest difference?
Well, the biggest difference is that when you're a project manager, you're not necessarily the leader or someone's boss. You're the leader of that project, but you're not their boss. So it's incredibly difficult because you're on a project with 8 other people and you're not their direct boss, and they feel like they don't have to listen to you. So you have to be, that is a trained skill. That was one of the things that I learned, right? So when I went from that single unit operation, right, $4 million, big dog in the building. Everyone knows Joe. I'm taking reservations on my cell phone. Half the people in the damn dining room know me, you know what I mean? To now I'm leading a project that takes 6 months to a year to get off the ground, and I'm working with 13 people, and I'm not their boss. Very different skills, very different, and totally different muscles, right? So, again, when you talk about getting things motivated to be done, you have to master the art of follow-up.
For sure.
You know, so communication, organizational skills, task management, all those things. So again, if you're someone that's, you know, mid-level management, get yourself a project management certification. And then for everyone else, I'm a believer that everyone should get leadership training, like without a doubt, you know. So that's the number two, those two things that anybody that I've worked with in the entrepreneurial space, this biz ops space, that I always say, those are the two things. Okay, you want to go to the next level? Great. Get project management training, get leadership training, right? Project management training, leadership training. Can't say it
because that literally is the next level. Because like 0 to 1 million is the easiest thing ever. Just one product, one avatar, one channel, right? Like now, how do we go from 1 million to 10 million? Mm-hmm. It's leadership.
Yep.
Trust.
Numero uno.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. What's the biggest challenge you faced so far, and how did you handle it?
The biggest challenge that I've faced so far, and how did I handle it? In business or life?
Yeah, as like a COO.
As a COO? Man, I would say the biggest challenge that I've faced so far is managing so many projects that there's literally not enough time in your actual day that you have to get comfortable with leaving things undone. Okay? So, yes, you have deadlines, yes, you have due dates, but there's only so much capacity for the team, right? So, when you're moving at the speed at which we move in our space, right? There's typically a line where you go past where you probably should have hired somebody, and then you're in that space of we really need somebody. Because if you hire too early, you rob yourself of a lot of profitability, and maybe they don't have enough work, right? So that timing on that in terms of the recruitment process is critical for the scalability that you want in your business, right? So what I would say is that when you have somebody that is huge visionary, and they just are dumping ideas like it's nobody's business, right? You have to learn to have a dumping ground, right? Maybe they send it on the phone, they send it in Slack, they send it in email, they connect you with this person over here, blah, all these different things, and have that dumping ground. That's part of that project management. But then being okay with shutting the day down with this many tasks still left undone, right? Because the reality is that if I'm going by my schedule, when it's time for dinner with Damien, it's time for dinner with Damien. When it's time for Damien baseball, it's time for Damien baseball. And you have to build the repetitions of being with where your feet are. So when I'm at dinner, I'm at dinner. I'm not at work.
You're present.
I'm present. When I'm at baseball, I'm at baseball.
What did Jim Rohn say? Don't bring the briefcase to the beach.
Yeah.
Don't bring the beach to the briefcase.
Yeah.
I love it. It's true, man.
But it's
true.
hard as fuck.
It's helped me.
It's hard, yeah. It's not easy.
Oh my God.
But nothing worth having is easy.
Not when you're in hyperscale.
Yeah.
Not when you're in hyperscale where every single dollar is going back into the business for growth.
All right, so those are all the questions I had for you. Now let's get into some reaction videos. So what we're gonna do is show you some reels, Instagram reels, TikToks, and either you can just be like, this person's full of shit, and like give your point of view, or you can just give us like a deeper understanding of what they're trying to communicate.
Okay,
How does
cool.
that sound?
Sure.
Amplification of whatever is at the top. So you have to think whoever is at the top of the organizational chart is who sets the culture. And they are the most potent source of culture. And so they are going to drip down and only become more diluted as they go. And so what you want to be as a leader is you want to be the most potent source of your core values on your team, because it's only going to become more diluted as the company gets bigger. And so a lot of people say, how do I build culture, Layla? The question is, how do you build yourself? How do you turn yourself into a leader? How do you increase your own character traits? How do you become the best version of yourself? It is truly the only way to build culture on your team, because nobody is going to be more sincere than you, more loyal than you, more hardworking than you. The best example of what everyone else in the company should be, and you set the expectation for everybody else.
I think Layla was listening to our podcast today.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, you know what was really, you know what I'll say to that? When I worked at Bloomin' Brands, the Liz Smith, the CEO who was there, it was a $4 billion organization. Thousands and thousands of employees, tens of thousands of employees, right? They rolled out this survey, you know, this SMG survey, like task force, and you know, we're just getting drilled on knowing like the purpose of this survey, right? And it was the ranking system, right? Anybody that ranked us a 4 or below had an 80% chance of not returning to our restaurants. And anybody that ranked us a 5, right? They had a 60% chance of returning to the restaurant. Well, you know as well as I do, businesses scale through return and referral business, right?
Absolutely.
So getting those 5s was critical. But they're like drilling all this stuff, and we're like, what is going on with all this? 90 days later, we have the quarterly earnings call, and we have the big announcements, and everything comes down. And they send this graph, and it was a cascading communication chart, and had her at the top, all the executive vice presidents, you know, CFO, CEO, all that, CMO, and then layers, you know, brand presidents, VPs, all the way down to the hourly associate. In a 90-day period, she traveled to 100 restaurants all throughout and was asking the hourly associates about that. She was testing her own organization to see how well the cascading communication did from her, like
In a $4 billion
organization, right? Testing on that to see how well they were doing, like the game of telephone, right? Similar to that. So that's what Layla was talking about there is spot on, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with culture. It's the same thing with communication. It's like whatever I set as the standard and the values and how I reflect those is what carries down, right? And then as it carries down, like I love how she said it gets diluted, right? Because the farther it is away from you, right? It's like a fire. The farther away from it you are, the less you feel the heat, right? So how do I get other people in my organization to build their own fire? That's the real thing. Because then they'll be like, hey man, why aren't you building your fire? Why aren't you building your fire? We need more warmth here. We need more heat. That is when you know an organization is healthy. People are holding each other accountable with those core values.
Businesses, the reason that they're very inefficient is because they throw money at all the problems rather than just solving the problem. An example is people. They've hired somebody and now that person is in the wrong role. They don't want to demote them. They don't know what to do. So then they just hire someone new because they have the money and bring them in above them and say, this is your new boss. And now we have both of you. Whereas in a company that's really aiming for profitability, they'll say, this isn't the right role for you. Unfortunately, either we demote you or you're going to have to take a step back. Now that person gets to go on and have the career of a lifetime somewhere else. And then a new person gets to come in who's actually a good fit for the team. And I think that makes for a healthier company. And so I think a lot of businesses that aim to have a certain profitability are healthier in general because it keeps a good discipline. But I think there are some companies that are not profitable that are still well run.
So this goes back to exactly what we were talking about earlier in terms of having the uncomfortable conversations, right? Because going to have that conversation with the staff member, like she just said, is the most loving thing you can do for them. You're in the wrong role. I noticed that as the leader in the organization. Let's see if we can get you in another role or unfortunately, we don't have anything right now, we need to get you out. And then, like she said, they can go on their merry way and find something more suited to their gifts. And then you're not holding them back in a competency and aces in their places like disqualifier, where you're going to be beating your head against the wall, and so are they, right? So, like, have the courage to have the conversation with your team members if you're in a leadership role, because they deserve that love from you. Because it's what you're saying to that person is, I recognize that I made a mistake in placing you here. I own that, and I accept that, and I want you to go be you, right?
And have the best outcome for you.
For you.
You care about their success.
Correct. Then one of the number one things I tell anybody I work with is, to me, you're a human being first and an employee second. So when I go and speak to you in that conversation that she's talking about, I'm showing up for you as the human being first, and the professional part as an employee second. Because I'm honoring my integrity of the standards within my business and honoring your integrity as a human being, and showing some dignity for you, right? To allow you that space to move on or move into another role.
Stress. And I think a lot of people in the beginning, you associate it with it because you worry about like what you're going to lose if you don't do it correctly, what you're going to lose if you lose your business. And I think for me, a lot of businesses, the reason that their work cannot mean stress. And I think a lot of people in the beginning, you associate it with it because you worry about like what you're going to lose if you don't do it correctly, what you're going to lose if you lose your business. And I think for me, confronting all of those fears has been what's allowed me to move so much faster with so much less stress in acquisition.com. I'm building this thing 50 times faster than I built Gym Launch, 50 times better with 50 times more quality everything, only because I have such more clear thinking. I've gone through all the like worst case, the COVID, the terminations, the layoff, like all the huge mistakes I made in Gym Launch. You know what you realize is that at the end of the freaking day, you're still here. Business is a game we choose to play.
Yeah, that's spot on. Because the reality is that like what it is that she's talking about is, number one, you already have all of this experience that you're pulling from all those past failures. So when they happen again, it doesn't feel as hard, right? And then
like you're numb to it, is that what you mean?
You're not numb to it, it just doesn't cut as deep. You know, it doesn't penetrate as far, right? It's almost like you've built up an armor of failure, you know? And then the other thing is too, is like what she's talking about in terms of like the speed, right? Like when you're able to be that decisive with things, like your business will just absolutely take off. Because either you're acting out of love or you're acting out of fear, right? Either you're acting out of faith or you're acting out of fear, right? And fear robs you of abundance, robs you of possibilities, right? So what happens is when you move into the mood of ambition, which means I understand this is in my control and I'm going to take action on it, then you're in the mood of ambition, right? Which means that you have limitless possibilities for what it is that you can achieve, and you're playing on a different level. You're playing on a different level, like a totally different field,
like a
than
different
most people.
Vibration.
Yeah, because fear is the ultimate dragger, man.
Yep.
False evidence appearing real. You know, and like you just sit in that space and it robs you. Right? But when you're just going and you're just acting out of abundance, like, yeah, you're gonna fall on your face, and that's okay.
Get back up.
Yeah, you just get right back up, and that's okay.
It's okay to fall.
Yeah.
So we're in Cody's Coach's Corner. Joe, I have a couple of questions for you, some common sense questions and some, just some stuff that I feel the world should know. So the first question I have for you is, coming from, a man of faith, as, you and I are definitely unified on, and it's definitely made a big impact. What would you say your advice to, someone like your son, and people that are struggling with it or just have no belief and really need some hope?
Good question. I think the first thing that I think I had to ask myself was, how's that working for you? Like without that spiritual part of my life. The second thing is that I don't know enough about the world to not be able to say there's no higher being, right? Like
For sure.
I would say my life is certainly a testimony for God's grace. There's people in my life that 3 friends specifically that they lost their life for drugs, and we were doing the same thing. So it's one of those things for me that it goes back to similar to what we were talking about too in terms of leadership, right? It's like, okay, well, how do we measure leadership? Well, we would probably look at followers. Okay, well, who has the most followers on the planet? Well, about 2 billion for Jesus Christ, right? And whether you're a Christian or not, whether you believe in Jesus or not, there's about 25% of the population that believe he's really, really important, right? And the principles that he's teaching does something to fulfill their life. There's Buddha, there's Muhammad, there's all these people, right? That we consider, spiritual giants, gods, whatever.
Thought leaders.
Right, but they have followers. And the cool thing is that the principles that are encapsulated in those religions, they're all very intertwined. Like if you study, Islam, if you study Buddhism, you study Christianity, like I have, you're going to see those principles intertwined in all of those, right? And the sole purpose of any of those is to manifest yourself, right? So awaken yourself to who it is that you're supposed to become, and align yourself with a centralized purpose that's buried deep within you, and do what we were talking about earlier, and that's unravel all the cultural context, all the generational context, to be who it is that you're supposed to be, with the gifts that you have to then, help build up the world and make it a better place, and you get fulfilled as a result of that. I would also say too that the new religion is politics, especially in Western culture. Since now they're void of that kind of spiritual, and people are leaving the church in unprecedented numbers, especially with young people, they're attaching themselves to, politics, right? And again, that just goes back to that deep, deep desire to have a tribe, to have a community, to be surrounded with like-minded individuals, right? So again, there's many ways that I feel like that people can find that stuff, but I would say for me, God is the central foundation of my life. Everything that I do, everything that I am, is for everyone to bear witness of His strength, His power flowing through me, right? And what happens is that people are always like, man, why are you so energized all the time? How come you're just like always on? And it's like, well, if you were tapped into the source that I am, and you could go to that well with a bucket, and it's an unending source, then how can I not always be filled up? I'm not saying I don't have bad days, but that's a day. It's not a decade,
Exactly.
So,
yeah, God's the creator, and He created you, and He gave you the choice to make a decision. That's why you are a God, and you create your own world. That's a lot of power there. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have self-doubt about religion, but we're talking about faith, we're talking about love, and I agree on every spectrum that if it wasn't for that foundational love that I have for God, and understand that we're all just human beings, I would not be here right now. If there'd be no shot. It's evident. And for people out there that are pushing some type of whatever it might be, culture on religion, that's okay. Just focus on yourself, and just have some faith in something, or fall for everything. Appreciate your answer on that. So
yeah, I think it's like super interesting. You pointed out that like a generational difference is that people now are leaving the church and leaving religion at unprecedented numbers. I think that's like interesting, because like your age, how old are you?
40.
you're 40, I'm 28. I don't personally identify with any type of religion. I've studied all of them.
Yeah,
and
same.
And then I went through like my choice, like who do I feel like most represents me and my values. And what I noticed is like in all of the religions except Buddhism, I felt like, and Judaism, when we go into like the Kabbalah aspect of it, I felt that it created a lot of limiting beliefs in people. Like their teachings created a lot of limiting beliefs, and then I had to step back. I'm like, why would they want that? And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, if they're controlling the masses, they can't want the masses to be better than whoever they are. You know, so it just like stepping back and looking at that, and I'm like, okay, so then I personally, I feel like I'm more spiritual than anything. Like I believe in the universe. The universe is God to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the
That's
equivalent.
faith. That's faith, baby.
Yeah. So
That's
like
faith,
what I do every day is when I meditate, I surrender. And I think that's a word that you said that like, you know, spoke to me, right? Like I surrender every single day to the divine will. You know, like, and I ask for things. I ask for things to show up in my life for me to become a better version of myself. And like literally when Cody came that day, it was because I surrendered to God, to the universe, and I was like, please show me what I need to do next. And like, boom, it was like manifestation crazy. Like I believe in those things. I believe that, you know, you have a higher self looking out for you, and that higher self is all because the universe is like wanting to give you abundance, unconditional love, peace of mind, all those things that we want. It's trying to give it to you, but you're blocking yourself from your blessings.
Well, I think the lie is to believe that you're not the universe.
Yes.
I am it.
It's you. It's your world, baby.
But like, I'm not separate from it. I'm a part of it.
100%.
And the only reason why, like you said, that you're not where you want to be is because of this thing, you know? I mean, I'm glad that you brought up meditation. That's a very important part of my life, right? Like, I told you, like, what my past was. It was messy. Like, to be able to sit, you know, just like on the edge of my bed and to quiet my brain for 10 seconds back in 2009 was like magical to me, because it turned off telling me how much of a piece of shit I was for the 13 years of nasty ass behavior, right? So then, you know, I was like, oh, 10 seconds, oh, 30 seconds, oh, 2 minutes, 30 minutes, right? Like this practice that I've had for almost 14 years now. And it's like, I look at prayer and meditation like food and water, right? Like, I wouldn't dare go like 3 or 4 days without food and water because it's nourishment. Prayer and meditation is just like nourishment. Prayer is asking, meditation is listening, you know? So when I ask for things, yeah, of course they're going to come, because I'm sitting still enough to be able to receive it. And I'm open to possibilities, you know?
For sure.
That's real. Boom, shakalaka. I appreciate that. Next question I have for you. So, tell me a little bit how you feel about politics right now. Like, what's your true, honest opinion? And
no comment. I think it's a circus.
Facts.
And it's a club. And we ain't fucking in it.
Yeah, and they're trying to divide people. Like, that's their only goal. Because how do you conquer a society? Divide and conquer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question.
Appreciate the common sense factor there. So tell me about your body, man. Tell me, tell me why you started getting fit and how you feeling. I mean, you're looking buff.
Yeah, so
Buff daddy.
When I started transforming my life, I started with the spiritual first, because I truly believe the only reason why I was behaving the way I was behaving, and like we were talking about earlier, is because I was trying to fill that hole that only God could fill. So I had to start with the spiritual first, and then a mental and emotional, and then incorporating the body was anytime I feel like I'm reached the pinnacle of my character building, or I've ran out of a list of things to work on, I just check in with my wife, and she gives me 3 to 5 more things to work. And one of the things was,
That's funny.
you know, back in 2018, she was, and my wife is in incredible shape. She's a certified Pilates instructor, trainer, so she's always on and never off with that stuff. And
What's her IG and TikTok handle?
Ali DiRoma, ALYDIROMA. And then it's one of those things that, like, she's like, hey, you know, like, you know, I'm really worried about you. Not like shaming me, not like whatever, you know, women are a little bit more forgiving about physical appearances than I think men are, you know, just innately. But, you know, she's like, you're coming up on 40, you know, you're 36 now. Like, you're not getting any older, you know, you might want to start thinking about building some habits and taking care of yourself. So that was kind of around the same time that I met this guy who looks like a goddamn action figure. So, you know, it's like, okay, you know, maybe him and I can trade some stuff, right? I was like going through this ontological coaching training and organizational leadership training. So he was very interested in that. And then I was very interested in looking like him. And, you know, I just applied the same principles that I do with my daily contemplation, that I do with my schedule, that I do with my work, to my health. You know, I don't drink alcohol. I don't use drugs for almost 14 years now. So that's a huge factor that I don't have to take into consideration when I work out. You know, I'm very disciplined whenever I set myself, you know, set a focus up. Like, I'm very dialed in with that, and I honor myself with that. You know, and then I just started on the, you know, listening. And I think the biggest thing is that I never like went to him once and said, you know, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. It was more so, hey, I found this. What do you think about this? Hey, I found this workout. What do you think about this? And he would give me his opinion, or he would give me workouts, and he would give me food plans. And then I just stuck to the plan.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
And I, you know, it's like one of those things where people want some other answer than just showing up daily
And
in
doing
habits. And, you know, it's like, hey, everyone now is like, man, you're freaking getting huge. And now I'm like taking on this new identity of being
Feels
the big
good,
guy in
doesn't
the
it?
room, you know?
How'd that feel, baby?
It feels fantastic.
Big dog season.
This is forged. this is forged. This is, but also too, here's the thing that I really like about it. There are so many things in my life and everyone's life that I can't control. And a lot of times I fucking hate accepting all that shit.
Yeah.
I do, because I want peace and I want freedom, and I don't want to have resentment. But why not like go really, really hard on the things I can control? Right? Like what I put in my body and me going to the gym, I am in total control over that.
Yep.
You know? Or not, and I can be whatever, you know? Yeah. So that's the big thing.
And that's
I like that. I go hard on that. And it's very personal.
Yeah.
When you eat, you're maybe with yourself or your family. You're not, you know what I mean? When you go to the gym, that's very personal.
Yep.
It's very just with you, and it's a decision only with you, and you're alone in that decision. So.
And the quickest way to change any state of anything is physically. That's the easiest way to just change any state that you're feeling. And I've been in fitness for a long time. I do not take on clients anymore. I just don't. The only reason I took on Joe's because I love him, I adore him. But the only reason I really took him on, or anybody that would help, is because they have to be mentally prepared and they have to have that discipline, or it's a waste of my freaking time. That's why I'm over with the whole fitness thing. It's like that's me, you know, but I've executed that discipline to be able to have more. And by him, you know, making that offer, and then him talking and coaching me on, you know, ontological coaching on leadership, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. And I thank you and I appreciate it. And that's a win-win, like everybody likes to say. And I appreciate you, you know, displaying such discipline and looking fantastic for yourself first and for your wife, because I know she ain't playing with that, right? And, you know, it's awesome, man. And then the last question I have for you is, you know, me taking on this role, you know, it's a big role, man. You know, I'm definitely honored. And to take on this role with Viral Growth Media, being the accountability and mindset coach, what advice can you give me and everybody else out there that's a big responsibility? And I adore you, and I want to take that because I'm open to learning. You taught me that, bro.
Sure.
So please give me some love, baby, in the world.
Get project management training and leadership training.
Can you get a little more intentional?
Sure. Yeah, I would say be okay with being a beginner, because we get used to being an expert at what we're at for so long that we shift into something new and think we're going to still perform at that high level in something that we've been doing for 15 years. And it's just not like that, you know? Certainly there's transferable principles and skills, but overall, you know, just be patient with yourself. And also too, this is the number one thing that I will tell anybody. Invest in yourself professionally and personally during your time off. If you want to succeed in a new role that you're in, it's what you do when it's off work hours that will accelerate your growth within the organization more than anything else. The number one thing of why I've always continued to succeed in every role that I've been at is because while everyone is going to hang out drinking, I'm at my house reading, or I'm doing a course, and I'm taking that information and then I'm using it right away. I'm trying to teach it to somebody, or I'm using it within the organization to fail at it and learn it and get results from it and build confidence and through accomplishment. And then as a result, then I go on to the next thing. I try this. You know, when you read a book, take 2 to 3 things out of it, be intentional, and go implement them right away, right? You know, and all of that stuff is done during your time off, not when you're on the clock, right? And that's the missing thing, you know, like,
yes,
most people think about work as like time on, time off. I just don't look at it like that. Like, this is my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lifestyle.
Like, I don't believe in weekends and all that shit. Like, I came from the, you know, from the freaking restaurant world. So, again, like, just do the extra. Do the extra when no one's watching.
And, you know, that's a quote, one of my first quotes. What you do when you're alone, that's the reps. Your reputation is reaping the benefits of those reps. Your reputation, your results. In order to be successful in anything, I mean, you have to work so hard on yourself. And if it wasn't for doing that and being vulnerable enough to you know, act as a beginner and be able to actually say it out loud, that's a big, I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of you for being in my life. And I just want to, you know, congratulate you on all your success. And I thank you. And, you know, I really, it takes a big man. You know, we got a lot of pride and ego to say to somebody, I look up to you, man. I look up to you.
Thank you.
You changed my life. And what do you have in store, man? Last question, man. What do you see yourself, you know, what you got going on? What big goals you got going on, Playboy?
Oh, man. So I'll just say this. My wife and I, every New Year's Day, sit down and build out goals together for the year. We've been doing it since 2018. And it's amazing how when you sit down with someone like that and you're like, relationship goals, family goals, financial goals, professional goals, you know, career, all that stuff, like how uncomfortable it is at first to like be totally open and vulnerable with somebody, to show them like what's really meaningful to you, right? But now we look forward to it every year. Crossing things off the list together when you hit it during the year is really cool because you're a team together, not a team apart. So I'll have to get back to you on that because it's not January 1st yet. But I'll tell you what, we do have some big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I learned so much from you. You're such an insightful human being.
Yes.
And tell everybody where they can find you, where they can learn more about you.
Sure. Thank you. All channels, Joseph DiRoma, JosepDiroma. Hit me up, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you want. Always willing to connect with people and talk to you. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Laura and Cody. Appreciate you both.
For sure.
You're